Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Fast Currents, the show where we explore trends in creativity, design, innovation, and our digital future. I'm Barry Fiske, Chief Experience Officer for Merkle Americas, and your host for today's episode. This is going to be a great one. Today's topic: the future of data led experiences, right? And so, a little bit of context for the longest time, like we've talked about, how data led design is this incredibly smart, sort of sophisticated thing that we can do in digital experience design. It's been this glamorous idea that we can make these design choices and we can create these experiences that shift and personalize based on sort of like hard truths about human desire that we reveal through data. But if we're really honest with ourselves, I don't think the reality up until now has often lived up to the promise. Like a lot of past data led design has really, to this point, been not much more than some small amount of presumptive personalization, creating an experience that when you really step back and kind of look at it, isn't all that sophisticated. The exciting thing, though, is that today really is a new day, right? We're in the golden age, I would argue, of artificial intelligence, virtual agents, and a much more sort of sophisticated array of identity data platforms. So, really, the big question and the reason we're all here today, is the promise of truly anticipatory experiences and truly sophisticated data led design finally here? The kind of stuff that we've always talked about. Is it finally here? To have a rich discussion about this, let's meet our experts. We've got an array of them here. So, to my right, we have Carly French, who serves as a VP of Technology Strategy. In the corner, we have Pete Rogers, our head of Data and Technologies. And below me, right here, is Markus Sheldon, our head of Innovation and Emerging Experiences. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me, Barry.
All right. So, like as always, I also want to do a big shout out to the folks here behind the scenes, sort of making this entire episode happen. So, a big shout out to our social media specialists, Nick Berlaney and Haley Science, for managing the live cast and interacting with all of you. And thank you to all of you, I think, for joining. Also, a quick reminder: you can ask us questions throughout this live show. This is a live experience. Just type it in the form field on your viewing screen. And if there's a chance for us to get to it, we will try to get to it. But other than that, let's get things rolling with a bit of a speed round. So, question one here, really for the entire studio. And Markus, why don't we start with you? Like, is the era of truly data led design finally here?
Thanks, Barry. I think it is, and I think if you lay the right foundation and if you have the right plan in place, if you're focusing on the right experiences, you can leverage tools that are out there to make yourselves more efficient, which historically they tend to be very costly initiatives. So, I do believe it's here.
Yeah. Carly, how about you? Is it finally here?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen, like you said, a lot of organizations using data in small parts and pieces of their experiences. But I think as we see new technologies and new capabilities come online, that truly data-led design is here.
Yeah. Pete, what's your perspective? I mean, what evidence are you seeing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is happening. AI is gonna change this. We've been deploying a lot of these MarTech tools, and they're kind of bespoke and not connected, but AI is gonna allow us to really do this in a much quicker way, right? But I think we'll talk about this today. Data is gonna be something that we're gonna have to be very thoughtful about and make sure that we're there. And it's gonna while it is here, I 100% agree it's here, it's gonna take a little bit of time, right? Or I think organizations are gonna be kind of apprehensive. And I think like the cloud, they're just gonna go all in when they see the results and the value.
Yeah, yeah. Let's stay with you on that, Pete. Maybe our next sort of like speed round question. Like, what is it, if you can really pinpoint one thing that's kind of happening in our industry, what are you most excited about?
It's this evolution of composable architecture. I think the ability to use the different tools and bring them together, like we want to see organizations, kind of come together in a cloud like AWS, but being able to use multiple tools to connect your site experience, your mobile experience, your real-time CDP, and then potentially your data lake. That's a much easier way to be able to bring these things together.
Yeah, I love that. Markus, what are you most excited about? What's going on in the industry?
Well, I think just at large, the generation creation of tools that are out there and the fact that there's a variety of options. And because of that, the cost is much lower than it was when there were many less.
Yeah.
So the adoption rate's higher. The trial and error is much more frequent, and we learn and we grow and we refine as we go. So it's really exciting to see all the different brands adopting technology and seeing what it can do.
Yeah. Carly, what about you? What are you most excited about here?
I think I'm most excited about AI decisioning. I think when we look as marketers, we've always tried to map out experience journeys, and that can be really difficult because there are numerous and maybe even infinite paths that customers can take. And with AI, I think we're going to have the ability to have a lot more smart decision points made and not just these preset templates that we've kind of been accustomed to working in now.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, let's dig a little deeper. And again, to our audience, if you have any questions you want to try to ask us live, we'll try to squeeze them in here. But let's start like with maybe the big one, right? So, Marcus, why don't we start with you? Like, if you're talking to someone and their goal is to be a futuristic company with futuristic personalized customer experiences, like what are some of the fundamental things that they have to do first?
Yeah. With my background being in experience strategy and innovation, I always start with things that have little to do with AI and tools and generative AI and what it can provide to your business and more about who you are. Organizations have to be self-aware, who they are to their consumer, what do their consumer want from them, and what value that they can provide to the consumer's life. You start there, then you identify what your vision, who do you want to be in the future? Let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and then where are you today, and what are the gaps that are in place that are keeping you away from that vision? And then you develop a roadmap. You be methodical about it. You take chances, you take risks, but you also have to keep the business operating as usual. So you have to make calculated investments into technology, into pilots, into proof of concepts so that you can validate the decisions you make along the way using analytical tools, using real time personalization, using machine learning, and having those types of programs in place. That's how you take those baby steps to realizing your vision in the future. It's not going to happen overnight, even for the largest companies in the world.
Yeah.
Many of them are still fragmented. So you have to be self-aware of all of those things that are in the way of you delivering a truly future-proof experience to your consumers.
Yeah. I mean, Carly, why don't you build on that? Like how you consult with a lot of clients, like how do you often help them start? Even big companies sometimes don't know where to start on this.
Yeah, I agree. I think the talking about what your business strategy is and what your kind of customer strategy is fantastic. And then, and Pete and I are really on sort of more the data and tech side. So we start to come at it from, okay, what are your basic capabilities that you can do in your technology today? Okay, you want to be a level 5 maturity. You want to be doing this really sophisticated type of journeys. Let's take you to like level 2. Let's just start making me working up with your capabilities, finding some like core functionality that we can get more value out of your tools that then start to like kind of stair step you up to a level 5.
Yeah, yeah. Pete, let's go to you next. I mean, one of the big questions I think did you and I discussed previously is like there's some really big enterprise technology platform stuff that I think is kind of changing and evolving and really creating big opportunity for personalization. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what are you seeing at that level that is going to help accelerate some of this stuff?
Yeah, to build on what Carly was just saying, like you don't have to go and build all these things all on your own. Most likely you have a partner that you're working with today, and they're spending a lot of time and effort to be able to build some of these AI capabilities into their platforms. And you can really start to use those and learn. We're doing this with Snowflake, we're doing this with Adobe and Salesforce. You know, take advantage of those tools. You probably already have them in place. And then the data ecosystem, like pulling all of this customer profile together, customer 360 is kind of a term that's been out there forever. But
Yeah.
really having that available to you in real time where you can take advantage of it and you can update it. Like real time data has never been as easy as it is to access today, as it ever was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the ways to help people understand the potential a little bit. I mean, like Carly, to you, like there's some really great examples I think out there, and maybe we can go around to a couple folks. But why don't we start with you? Like, what are some examples of brands, products, services that you think are really doing sort of some of this data-led experience or personalization really well?
Yeah, so when I think about a really good experience with a brand. I think as a consumer, you want it to be a very organic, research or browsing or shopping experience that feels very intuitive and it's easy. So when I go and shop with a brand, I kind of want to say these three big things happen. I got what I wanted. I feel good about what I just bought, and you made that really simple for me. So brands that do this really well, I think a lot of people talk about the Amazons that give them really great like product recommendations, or Netflix that give you good content recommendations. I think that's like one small piece of it. And to our point earlier about like thinking about the entire personalization experience, I think there's a lot of other brands that think about more than just a single moment of personalization and do your whole journey. So two companies that do this really well that I like that are more fun, I think Domino's has done a really good job in recent years with their digital transformation. Anyone who shops with Domino's and is a part of like their loyalty program knows that they give like really great deals through like a lot of their app and like push notifications. So if you go and you click on one of those push notifications for like a very personalized offer for you, they have streamlined just like what your previous order is, what your favorite type of delivery is, how quick that you want it to get there. They've already saved your payment info. Like all of these things to just have made it really quick for you to have a simple shopping experience. And then my second company that I really love is Lyft. So I know Uber is usually like the main guy for rideshare apps, but Lyft I think has been doing some really good things on the tech side where when I open up my Lyft app on like a Monday at 3 p.m., they have this one tap to ride where it knows I'm going to the Denver airport and I'm going to the United terminal, and they are just going to make it super straightforward for me to click and get my pickup. And the same thing, they've like integrated with a lot of great partnerships. So they've got great integrations with Chase and DoorDash and Hilton. So like the other day when I was going to stay at a Hilton, they pulled in my reservation. I opened the app and they connected directly to the hotel address. So it gives these like really great personalization moments that aren't just your name and what you were already browsing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I mean, Marcus and Pete, like, I don't know, do you guys have any other brands that you're really impressed with? Maybe ones that are a little bit sort of like left of center or surprising for some folks?
Pete, you want to go first? Or I can go?
You go. I don't have any of the
All
left
right.
of center. I mean, mine is one of the Carly's probably.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily left of center, but I'm kind of an unofficial amateur home improvement guy, and one of the brands that I've been an advocate of for quite some time is Lowe's.
Yeah.
And what I love about what they're doing, and they're one of those organizations that they are just initiating the delivery of some of these more AI fueled services. One of the recent products that they just launched is focused on my home, and it's focused on collecting all of the information about the things that I do, the projects that I take on, things that I purchase from the store. And it makes it much easier for me, who traditionally, when I would own a home and I would do all this work on it, I would have this big 3 ring binder with everything stored analog, all my warranties, all that information. What Lowe's is doing for me now, it's all storing it in one place. Now, what that does for me is I'm going to go to them when I need a new refrigerator. I'm going to go to them when I need a new washer dryer. And it's not just that, it's the rewards they tie to it, not dissimilar to what Carly is mentioning around the rewards benefits with Domino's. I think that the brands that I tend to shop with the most are the ones that are actually using the data that I provide to them to my benefit. And that's something that is a big differentiator, especially when the economy is what it is, and I've got 2 kids and I'm saving up for college, so I'm trying to save up as much money as possible. I need to get those pennies to go as far as they can. So Lowe's has been really helpful in me doing that
Yeah.
as a homeowner.
I love that. I love that. That's a great example. I mean, we've talked a bit about the good. Maybe let's talk a little bit about the danger too. So, I mean, Pete, over to you. Like, what are some examples of some poorly thought out experiences? Maybe a little bit lessons for other people to sort of think about and avoid.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of people build these strategies and then they don't have the same measurement or the same incentives, right? So we see a lot of companies that I have a persona, right? And I want to be able to personalize the site based on that persona. But this week I need to sell lumber, I need to sell coffee, whatever it is that the brand is trying to sell. And those sales incentives overtake what the actual personalization should be. So the consumer gets confused because you're trying to push product versus actually pushing a personalized experience. And then I would also say that you have to make sure that a product recommendation is not necessarily a customer experience. And I see this often, especially like in the sports world. I'm a big sports fan, right? So if I buy a Red Sox hat, I'm a baseball fan. Do not show me a Yankee hat. I have no interest in that. So products have to be very careful if you're thinking about who the person is. And the thing on, I think both Carly and Marcus talked about this, like, know the person, right? You have to, that's the ones that I was thinking about that you mentioned. I think Fidelity is one, and Delta, like, they really know me, and they understand who I am. And we see some brands get a little bit nervous around some of the privacy concerns. So they kind of, put the brakes on some of these things. You have to understand all the privacy regulations. You have to be able to follow all those. But if your customer wants you to know them in the most, unique way. So I think you have to be careful about overdoing it on some of the privacy.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I mean, I think you kind of hit on something, and Marcus, maybe we can kind of go to you with this next question. Like a lot of people, I feel like I hear talk about, well, AI is going to solve all that, right? This system is so smart; it's not going to make any mistakes. And what I see a lot is that people, when they're interacting, especially as AI starts to evolve from like chatbots to conversational agents,
Mhm.
people start to have a human expectation of a lot of the interactions that they have with them. And so if literally something that looks like a chatbot avatar, or maybe even these days, real-time video of a fake real person that's actually talking to me, and they know that I ordered that Red Sox hat and now they're recommending a Yankees hat, I'm going to get mad the way I would if an actual person recommended that, not the way that I'm going to, I don't know. So like Marcus, long-winded way to sort of say, like, what's the danger of like a bad AI bot, like telling you what to do? Like, is this the the starter script for like the next Terminator movie, or what? Like how do people sort of avoid making mistakes with some of these really on the surface sophisticated things that conversational agents and AI bots can do now? Um, but maybe with those come these different sets of expectations.
Yeah. So the shortest way for me to say it, but then I'll elaborate on it. Conversational agents are not Ronco ovens. Okay. It's not a set it and forget it situation. You can't just, turn the dials for 40 minutes and then you're done. No, it requires observability, and it also requires a plan. Models can degrade. You need to invest in making sure that you have a team, or an agency resource that is dedicated to observing what's happening, monitoring performance, and making sure that it stays on rails. That's the first thing. The other thing is you have to know when it's time to hand it to a human. And
Yeah.
in some cases, brands do right by their consumers, not by giving them a bot, but by giving their support staff that same bot that aggregates all of the detailed information, whether it is managing a ticket or an electricity outage, right? Making sure that their representatives have the information in hand and are more efficient in what they're delivering. I think we've all seen the danger of a bad AI or a poorly planned AI with what happened with character AI earlier this year. Um, Nowadays, what you also have to avoid are promises that conversational agents make on behalf of your brand that you're never going to deliver.
Yeah.
Now, say as a for instance, I'm not calling out the brand. I had a conversation with an agent. They were willing to give me a free trip to Hawaii. Didn't get it. I didn't get it. But that's where legal comes in. We have to think about, hey, if I'm asking for something for free, that's a perfect time for a human to interject and say, hey, we noticed you're interested in a trip to Maui. Oh, we can't give it to you for free. Why don't we give you a 20% discount because you're really clever about going about it? Like, it's those types of things that are thinking through the holistic experience. It is very strategic and it's very creative. You can be fun with it. It's all about the planning. It isn't it's kind of like a pit bull, right? There are no bad pit bulls, they're bad owners. There aren't bad AIs, they're bad owners that aren't maintaining it, aren't managing it, and aren't planning it in the right way in the best interest of their consumers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Pete, maybe over to you just quickly. I mean, I I feel like we're sort of putting a lot of fear into people here about doing some of this stuff. Like, oh my gosh, this could go wrong or that could go wrong. Like, I mean, talk a little bit about the dangers that can happen here, or, you know, maybe the flip side, and maybe this is a leading question, like, is really the big failure here to not be out there experimenting and trying with some of this stuff?
I think you have to be trying, right? This is the innovator's dilemma, right? If you don't go do it, someone else, your competitor, is going to go and make it happen. So you have to do it. And a lot of the successes that we're seeing are small, like they're small incremental things, and that's what we're working on with our clients. They're kind of pushing the ball forward a little bit. I was at AWS reInvent last week, and I kind of was really hunting out for use cases, and it was the same thing. It was small incremental changes, test it, learn, see what's working. Um, one of the best ones I saw last week is the NFL, and they had built like kind of an internal app to be able to help their team onboard, right? And it's
Oh,
not for
very
hundreds of thousands of people, but they were getting a lot of value out of it. And they talked a lot about the lessons they learned about data, right? The data that they had to get together, they had to reformat it, right? They had to put it into different templates or different sources because the AI doesn't know how to go read an image with a line on it. So you're going to learn a lot if you just go and do this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Carly, bring it home for us here. Like, right, so many folks, I think, so many of our clients might sort of have more of a conservative sort of lens when they think about um, their data and their customer data in particular, and how guarded they have to be. They're worried about their brand and how guarded they have to be. And here we are talking about how like a conversational agent can kind of steer the wrong way or that kind of thing. But we're also saying, hey, you have to try. So like, for in a world where many of these clients are still trying to come to terms with embracing something as old fashioned as like social influencers, like how do we help clients like embrace AI generated brand experiences? This sounds like scary for some people, and maybe not worth the risk. Like how do you help people think through that challenge?
Yeah, and I think even maybe to like your question, like who's doing it bad, what bad data-led experiences have we seen? Like, I think it's pretty timely that Spotify's Wrapped just came out, if anyone's a partner on that streaming platform, and there's a lot of people that are disappointed, I think you can say, that it wasn't as creative as it had been in past years, and a lot of that was because the AI just sort of took the raw data and almost like if I were to give Pete a performance report of like, here's what we did this year, it was boring. It was just like, yeah, here are your top artists, here's your top songs. So I think they see these risks and they're like, oh, well, maybe we are better suited having more creative people minds working on these initiatives. But I think the biggest thing we start to talk about when we get them to embrace some of these AI things is like Pete said, really small. Think about it in bite-sized pieces. We love to come in and do a lot of education and like demystifying what AI is. AI has a lot of different features and functionality, and all of the generative AI, I think, is very scary for people. But AI has the benefit of being a logical design system. There's rules built in, there is logic that it follows. You can see behind the black box, per se, like what data sets it is evaluating, what you're feeding it, what you're training it on. So when you come in and start to like peek under the hood of like what's sort of the actual algorithm underneath it, I think people get a bit more comfortable. They're like, oh, we can put this legal guardrail on it. We can put these brand guidelines in this. We can make all of these rules and it adheres to those rules. Um, so that's a big one for us. And then I think the second thing is around just like smart testing. Like do some really good tests that you can iterate on and keep it in a low risk sort of environment. So when you identify good pilots to think about, I mean, Pete and I talk about this a lot of why AI is so relevant in marketing. It's because it can be a little bit lower risk for our consumers at times versus a healthcare scenario or versus some sort of financial scenario. So I think making sure you identify good areas to go and test. And then again, like continuing to, I think we talked about this with Marcus already, like good observability and good accuracy, just making sure you've got that human oversight in some of your AI and not letting it just run free.
And Barry, if I could add, uh,
Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
we're in the agency world, so we need to be efficient with what we do. And I love the fact that Pete brought up the NFL example. How do we make a process that is typically quite mundane, laborious, and analog and augment it? It's not replacing it entirely, it's augmenting it. So, how do we make 50 ideas in less time? It's all going to have to go through a creative filter. It's all going to have to go through a strategic filter. So brands can be doing that real time, and you can leverage partnerships to do that more efficiently. Now you have to make a choice. Where do you want your data to live? That's up to you. That's why you start small before you're making massive investments in shifting your infrastructure that could force you into a corner that you can't get out of in the long run. So it's a matter of taking advantage of the opportunity to focus on efficiency, focus on effectiveness, utilize tools that are out there, and that's how you de-risk. Doing things at scale and making broad stroke changes are typically what get all of us in trouble. So on the agency side, we try to focus on the things that we can control and what's going to enable our teams to be better stewards of our clients' business.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, look, I obviously we are biased. We have a bit of an opinion. We think that the future is really bright about these things. I mean, my perspective is we've talked a lot about like what it means for a business and what it means for people making business decisions. Ultimately, I always look at things from a customer first lens, and customers love great service. It's why you go and you talk to someone in a store that you love to talk to because they always have the right answers. It's why we love sort of like talking to someone in a retailer that always has great advice. The more that a site can actually understand who you are and exactly what your problem is and offer up content that solves sort of your problem directly and not in a generic way, the more that you can create experiences like conversational agents that actually can act more like that maitre d' at the restaurant that you love because they know exactly what you're looking for and can offer that great advice. That's what this is about. The benefit for a brand or a company that really advances the ball on the level of service that they can deliver to their customers is going to win big time in the experience economy moving forward. So, I mean, like, maybe like final big round question here, Marcus. Let's go back to you just to kind of start. I think we know the answer to this is yes, but I'll ask it anyways. Like, should every client be experimenting with these AI and data led experiences? And like, how should they sort of like constantly be pressing on advancing their own experience?
Yeah, I think it goes back to even part of my answer in the beginning of the panel here is that know who you are. And that's both who you are to your consumer, but also organizationally. Are you set up to do things at scale? Most organizations are likely not, but that's okay. Start small. Think inward. What can we do to drive greater efficiencies in-house? For publicly traded companies, you're going to benefit shareholders. For private companies, you're going to benefit your employees. The hopeful is that you're doing both. But on the consumer-facing side, it's the test and learn. It's building out POCs. You have an opportunity to engage your greatest advocates, the people who are your fans, and have them be the leaders in helping to define the larger consumer experience. That's a great opportunity. And with the technologies and tools that are out there, you can do that. And you can bring those people into the fold. And being a part of the future with you is as much of a reward as the points that they get in their account that gets them 50% off their next pizza at Domino's, or in my case, a free sandwich at Bojangles. Um, but the idea is everybody should be understanding of what's out there. But it isn't just around what you're doing for your consumers, it's what you're doing for yourself. Making yourself smarter, making yourselves more intelligent, give yourself a return on experience that's on both sides of the table. Because what you'll get in the end is a future focused,
Yeah.
future ready organization.
Yeah. I mean, Pete, why don't you build on that? Like, I mean, give us your biggest pitch here for why you really need to be advancing and experimenting with some of these technologies.
I mean, it's going to drive better experience. It's also going to drive efficiencies, right? Like, if I go talk to my technology friends, they're going to say, "Hey, we can do this better, faster, cheaper." So I think they're going to be all in on this. I did just want to hit on one thing that's kind of a watch out is making sure you have the right test harness in place. Like, probably talk about testing and like testing ideas, but it's not just about, hey, let's just go come up with a bunch of answers on how to test this out. If you have a website that you're deploying, you have a formal QA process. You want to have the same process as you're thinking about how to deploy an AI agent. And the AI tools are coming out with some of those guardrails to be able to help you to do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Carly, bring us home. Like, what's the big sort of like argument that you think you want to make the loudest here around why people need to be experimenting with these AI and data-led experiences?
I think it's just probably like no duh, but it's just not going anywhere because like imagine if you were an organization who are just like, you know what, we're just not gonna do TikTok. We just like don't think we should advertise there. Like, it probably will go away. Like that would be a really dumb decision. So not getting in on the bandwagon of AI is just not a very smart business decision. It's here to stay. You're going to have to incorporate it into both your internal processes. I love that you hit on that, Marcus, because that's a great way to start, and your customer-led experiences. So start doing it now.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, great insights as usual from our panel of experts. So, like, as everybody knows, we now bring in our real star of the show. Haley Science is joining us here. And like we like to do at the end of every session, I'd love to kind of hear from Haley, like what you thought of the conversation, what really stood out today, and who won the day, who made the best argument here today, Haley.
Yeah, well, I work in social, which means that I see upfront a lot of like consumer reactions to different AI integrations. So, like Kylie mentioned, the Spotify Wrapped was a big conversation on social. When that happened, a lot of pretty negative responses to that. Similarly, with the recent Coca-Cola commercial that was like fully AI generated, I think oftentimes like brands that are going all in and not like taking a minute to think through if it's really what their customers want are seeing that backlash. And so, because he's the one who brought up making sure that you go slow, you know when to turn to a human, you know when to put on that creative filter. My winner today is Marcus. I think he and I are pretty aligned when it comes to the best ways to incorporate AI slowly and incrementally, and making sure that the people with the brains are not totally being left out of the process.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I love it. Marcus, congratulations. And your prize for today is not getting a free trip to Hawaii. I think that's basically the lesson here. So, congratulations on winning this episode of Fast Currents.
All right. Well, I'll continue plugging away with the agents to see what I can get. The long holiday season. I need that. Daddy needs a new sleepwear, so I'm missing it.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, a huge thank you to all of our panelists, and a big thank you, of course, to all of you out there listening to yet another great episode of Fast Currents. Thank you for tuning in today. If you really enjoyed today's show, you know what we're going to ask you to do. We really want you to give us a like, help us share the episode across your social channels, and be sure to be on the lookout for future episodes starting again in the new year about a whole bunch of great topics. We've got a great slate of content coming up in the new year. If you're interested in joining a team of really innovative minds and thinkers like these folks, you can visit merkle.com/careers. And of course, if you have business inquiries, we're happy to talk to you. You can reach out to us at marketing@merkle.com. A special thanks again to Carly and Pete and Marcus for sharing your brilliant insights. I'm Barry, and on behalf of Haley and Nick, we'll see you on the next episode of Fast Currents. See ya.